Good afternoon. First of all, a big thank you to the speakers that we have here. We have Mr. Dinesh Khara, the chairman of SBI. You can't get bigger. Fortune 500 company, biggest microfinance company. So many bigs to the entity like that. Mr. Vaidyanathan from IDFC first, a veteran banker. By the way, he says that I don't go to events like this, but he has come here. So thank you so much. Mr. Keki Mistry, the veteran banker, wearing a hat with frothing with many feathers, is into so many areas. And Ms. Zarin Daruwala, she is, I don't know, I think maybe you should say a foreign bank with an Indian heart, or someone who's an ace, who has great acumen in finance, or probably you're a rank holder in your chartered accountancy, I think. So lots of things about you. So thank you so much. I have one round of applause because thank you so much. Dinesh, if I can begin with you. The RBI governor actually touched upon some of the key areas of concern. And one of the first things that he flagged was essentially about the liquidity challenge, so to say. That deposit mobilization is a huge challenge. In a scenario like this, what do you think would be the first key priority areas for banks, especially given that SBI is leading the way in many ways?
Thank you very much. When we look at the liquidity, there are various components of the liquidity which enables the banking system to raise deposits. I think there's a paradigm shift, and that paradigm shift is essentially attributed to the efforts on the part of the government to ensure that the spending should be just in time. There are different phases when the spending is quite constrained or maybe restricted, and there are times when liquidity is available in abundance. So I think as the intermediary, this is incumbent on the part of intermediaries to look at deposit as a franchise and not to wait for the deposit to be raised when they see the opportunities.
Deposit as a franchise.
Deposit as a franchise. And that is something which we did during the peak of the COVID, when there were not enough opportunities for deployment. We continued to raise the deposit. And today when we look at our excess SLR, which is to the tune of about 3.7, and with the credit deposit ratio of 68%, we are better off as compared to many other players in the industry. So that's why, role of the intermediary is to even out the peaks and the troughs. So that is something which we have done. But nevertheless, I would agree with what Honorable Governor has mentioned, because the kind of growth which we get to see for the loan book, as compared to that, the deposit is not going commensurately. And
so very briefly, what would be your key priority now before I go to the other ones?
No, of course, we are also very mindful in terms of ensuring that our ability to continue to grow the deposit should be there, and all our branches on the ground, they have been very clearly told that deposit should continue to be a major focus of growth. And that is something we are offering all kind of, wherever required, some improvement in interest rate, wherever required, improvement in the products and the services, and also some of the add-ons which are required to make the deposit attractive to the customers. So that is something which we are doing. But having said that, I must also acknowledge the fact that deposit is one of the asset class. There are other asset classes also. And with the formalization which we have seen, normally during inflationary conditions, there is invariably effort on the part of the customers to deploy their savings into the most profitable sources or the asset classes which are available.
Okay.
But if at all people are looking for coupon, people are looking for the assurance for the repayment of the principal and the interest, perhaps bank deposit would be the all-weather product.
Okay, that would be a nice pitch for that. Mr. Vaidyanathan, until unless you want to add anything to what he says, but my question is again, just to kind of bring in more areas, decoding inclusive growth is the main theme of this conference today here. So from a banker's perspective, where do you find ourselves in the journey? And for you personally, where would the priorities be now?
See, when we see the next maybe 6 or 7 years of the country coming up, let me say 2030, a large number of new sectors are going to come up, and our banking system's ability to be inclusive towards new sectors coming up is going to be a very critical item.
Such as?
Such as, let us say, gig economy. Okay. So, if you see the gig economy people, they are neither very well educated, you can't call them postgraduates, but they're not uneducated also. Okay. They are not very high earning people, but they are not very low earning people also. Therefore, and they're all kind of platform workers, delivery people, etc. This is a very big area here. Now that number will be, say, 7 million today, will be 30 million people in 7 years. So this is since you asked for an example, this is an example of what sectors coming up, system has to figure out, because that's one thing. Now, secondly, the process of formalization, which all of us are seeing, for the last maybe 70 years of independence, first maybe 65, 70 years, corporate credit got a lot of the credit, and the bottom pyramid hardly got any credit. They operated from equity. And all of us in this room know that you cannot run any business out of equity because there's no leverage. So this, that 63 million enterprises, that 400, that 25 lakh crores of unfunded credit, all the numbers we talk about, that sector is truly unfunded. And not more than 15% of MSMEs are funded today. Back 85% is not funded at all. So this is one big sector.
So are you seeing formalization leading to more credit to MSME? Are you seeing it?
Which should happen, because I'm saying conscious effort, apne aap se kuch nahi hota hai. Conscious efforts have to happen to make it happen. So third is agriculture. There's more we see agriculture, I find it's a big focus area for our bank, rural economy. Okay. Not only from priority sector requirement, we need it from priority sector requirement point of view also. But it is pretty tragic to see how unfunded the rural economy in the country is. So if you ask me what are 3 focus areas, since you asked me, I'd say these 3 sectors, which is maybe the rural, the microcredit of the small entrepreneurs, and of course the new emerging sectors coming up.
Now small or medium also, nowadays they mention as NAMO, which is essentially, I think...
NAMO or even Nano,
yes,
Nano enterprises.
NAMO also now. Anyway, Mr. Mistry, one thing which was touched upon in the first question also about the deposit mobilization. You also understand the housing space really. Which housing mortgage building, how does one then fund the expected credit growth? I mean, from your vantage point, how would you look at it?
So if you ask me on liquidity, in my opinion, this phase where banks are running short of deposits is a temporary phase.
A temporary phase?
Is a temporary phase in my view. I think at some point of time that will change. You need to understand the reasons also. If you take the last 2 or 3 years, there has been some pickup in inflation. Post the Russia-Ukraine war, oil prices shot up and we saw inflation going up, and I think RBI did a fantastic job, truly mean it, in terms of bringing inflation down. But having said that, what has happened is, whilst the core inflation number is about 3.13% yes. or something, certain items of certain products which are consumed by the lower middle income and the poor, the inflation on those items has gone up. Food inflation, for example. If you take food inflation is 8%. Within that, vegetables is higher, cereals is higher, pulses is higher. So the type of products which are consumed by the middle income, lower middle income people, inflation has picked up. That's one. Second is, if you had taken a housing loan in 2022 and you've taken the loan at say 7.5%, that same loan today is being serviced at 10%. That's a 33%, 7.5 to 10, say. So that's about a 33% increase in the interest in the liability. So all in all, the saving capacity of the lower middle income people has got impacted. And that is probably one of the reasons why you're seeing that bank deposits has come off. Also, what we've seen is that the investment in real estate has picked up substantially. So within household saving, real estate has gone up, bank deposits has come down. This is a phase, in my opinion, at some point of time, difficult to say whether it'll be 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, but I'm sure it's going to change. Now on housing, I think it's not that there is no availability of money for housing. There is availability of money. Housing is booming. Housing markets have been growing very well. A lot of people talk about the low-income housing and the affordable housing and the high-income bracket and the metros. And a lot of people, I've read a lot of comments about how metro prices have gone up and the demand in the lower-income segment has come down. I would put it a little differently. I would say don't look at the last 2 years or 3 years. You have to look at the longer time frame. If you look at the period from 2016 to 2020, the metro market was very weak in real estate. And you may remember all newspapers were carrying reports about oversupply and the fact that demand was not there and things like that. So from 16 to 20, house prices in the metros did not go up at all. If anything, they came down. So when you're seeing a sharp rise in prices and demand from 2020, late 2020, post-COVID to now, you have to look at it from an 8-year or 9-year point of view. And if you look at it from an 8-year, 9-year point of view and average it out, it's not that high. So I think as liquidity comes back into the system, I think the lower income market will also start picking up. And I think the government, in my opinion, will do something for the affordable housing segment in the budget.
In the budget, you say? In
the budget. Whether it's in the budget or it's immediately after the budget, I don't know, but I guess there'll be some allocation in the budget. And the reason I say that is, apart from the need to provide housing or make housing affordable to that segment of the market, housing is a huge employment generator, massive employment generator. So it has a multiplier effect on the entire economy, because it's not just the jobs that you are creating in the housing sector, it's also the jobs that you are creating in sectors like cement, steel, paint, all the other ancillary industries associated with housing. So I think you should, I would expect something in the budget for the affordable housing segment.
Okay, so that's a good insight. Hopefully there's something on the budget that we have to see from the housing side. Ms. Daruwala, this point that Mr. Mistry left us with about job creation, which since it ties in with our inclusive growth thing as well, in your view, which are the areas where you think, creating employment and therefore that banks, what is it that, how can they drive in this journey? So if you can throw some light on, how will we see the credit, therefore, scenario change?
Okay. So I think as we see, jobs is a real focus for the government. And if we look at various sectors, if we look at, for example, China in 1991 was 9% GDP in manufacturing, and today it's 30% plus. And clearly that is one sector where we'll see a good amount of job creation. If you look at manufacturing again, all the industries which are infra-linked, like steel, cement, we're seeing good amount of capex happening. If we look at non-infra, like Keki said, real estate, 35 million square feet was done in H1 of this year in terms of just residential real estate. That is a big employment kicker. And today, if we look at construction sector, it's today employing about 7 crore people. That's expected to be 10 crore people employed. In terms of manufacturing, again, if we look at the new age sectors, like the whole EV ecosystem, the battery storage, the whole battery manufacturing, all the new age manufacturing sectors are going to see serious capex coming through. And that, again, will create another cycle of jobs. Electronics, for example. If you take one Foxconn employs 77 lakh people, 7.7 lakh people globally. So that's the kind of employment electronics creates. And that's, again, something thanks to the PLI scheme we're seeing good amount of job creation happening. So there will be various sectors, and of course the government needs to focus on labor-intensive sectors like garment, leather, footwear, etc. Those are, again, very, very big employment generators. If you look at garments, every 1 lakh rupee you invest, you're able to create 8, 9 jobs. And it's 240 times more labor intensive than steels, for the same amount of capital investment. So it's very, very imperative that those sectors are focused on. As far as banks go, I think banks would be happy to fund any of these activities as and when the investment cycle has already kicked off. It will only accelerate.
Okay. On the previous point of Keki, on the previous point Keki was making, see, the thing is that, while we talked about the fact that money is moving from the banking system maybe to investments or stock markets, whatever. But remember, for everybody who's investing, there is on the other side, there is a seller. And that seller is putting the money back in the banking system. If you're investing the money in a mutual fund, that money is going to some company and so on and so forth. So it's not that money is leaving the banking system. It is only the nature of the money is changing from being a retail deposits to maybe a corporate deposit or something. So I'll share you one statistic which will be important for you to understand this discussion, what Mr. Khara said and Mr. Keki said. See, the thing is that if you see the total deposits of the country, in the peak of COVID, 61% of the total deposits was retail deposits. 64%. Today it has come down to 61%. So obviously money has left and gone somewhere in the last 3 years. But if you see the corporate deposits, which is financial corporates or even normal manufacturing corporates deposits, that has grown from 21% to 24%. So I just want to clarify to you that money has only changed shape from retail, but the money is still the banking system. So we should not make it feel, oh my God, mutual fund is growing, so deposit is going to leave banking system. Aisa nahi hai. I just want to clarify that to you.
Yeah, but then when it invest in a stock, you invest in a stock, isn't it? It's not that one is... it's being used as a vehicle, isn't it? The banking system.
Vehicle. Money is gone other side to a bank.
Yeah.
It's maybe, you get the point. So the thing is that, I told you, of course, the nature changes from retail to corporate. So still the issue of being able to raise retail deposits and compete for retail deposits, that is still real. You still need to go through the process. And for that, I really believe we should give really fantastic experience layers. Like you asked him the question, in our case, we have built a bank like a very, very digital bank. Our experience layers, we really made it fantastic for people building the app and using. So with that, we're able to get deposits to customers from having with us. So in the fight of retail deposits, experience layer becomes very important. But overall money is in the banking system.
Yeah. Mr. Keki,
I just add to what Vaidya said. I think absolutely is right. When money goes to the stock market, ultimately it comes back into the banking system. Now the only difference is that instead of it coming as possibly a fixed deposit, which is a longer tenure deposit, it may be coming as a shorter term current account or a shorter term savings account.
Can you keep the mic closer to...
No, I'm saying instead of it coming as a fixed deposit in a bank, it's probably coming now as a current account deposit or a savings account deposit.
Right. And current account
It's
deposit...
an important point to understand because people tend to think, oh my God, money is leaving banking. Kuch nahi ho raha, yahan se wahan
but
gaya.
as it is coming back as current account deposit, this is 0% interest rate also.
Achhi baat hai na, to kya problem hai?
There is no benefit in that in any case. So, Mr. Khara, coming back to the point which we touched upon with Ms. Daruwala also, if the newer sectors are there, if the areas in which we will see investments happening, what would you think as as sectors that will see investments coming in? So how will therefore, as you see it today, the direction of the growth, how will the growth in the future now be different from how it was in the past, given the way in which the investments and the drivers that we're looking at?
Sure. One of the major paradigm shift which we are observing on ground is the focus for the renewable energy. And it has got implications across the sectors. I'll first touch base upon the solar in particular and also the way the solar capacity is being increased with the overall goal of the country to have 450 gigawatt solar energy by the year 2030. The way these new projects are coming up is something which affirms that we are on the right track. The second aspect of this, of course, which is essentially in terms of the new scheme which has been launched in terms of PM Surya Ghar, where more than 1 crore households are going to have rooftop solar. I think it is going to be another major game changer because the rooftop solar means also the solar panels, solar cells, the whole lot of new industry. This is actually a new lever of growth which we get to see in our economy, and it is moving very fast. The capacity is getting created in terms of solar cells, solar panels, execution of the solar panel for the household sector. There's a whole lot of new sector which is coming up. That is one. Secondly, the other area which to my mind is very, very promising, what was rightly mentioned in terms of the rural economy. Logistics is becoming a very important sector. With the kind of road network which has come up in past few years and the kind of efficiency which is there on the road sector, logistics is becoming a huge opportunity, and right from the warehousing and cold storages across, it has actually given a significant fillip to the rural economy as well. So it's a new way of looking at the rural economy, I would say. And SME, of course, things are changing quite a lot. Availability of data relating to GST, availability of data relating to the unstructured data relating to SMEs, it gives a very clear visibility in terms of the SMEs' conduct and behavior, and which has improved the underwriting for the SMEs also. So that is one of the reasons why perhaps we get to see much more traction. And of course, the last but not the least, to address the last mile funding, the way the NBFCs are growing and also adopting the newer ways of lending is something which is going to be the other reality. Having said all this, retail, because of the ambition and the aspirations of the common man in the country, that is something which will continue to be the flavor of all seasons. That's how I look at it. So I think these are the areas of growth, and we are seeing good traction in all these sub-segments of the economy.
Yeah. Mr. Vaidyanathan, I'm sure you will agree with whatever Mr. Khara has said, unless you would want to add anything to that, and to you, Mr. Mistry, and Ms. Daruwala, to the same points. But to you, the additional question which I would have is which something Governor also addressed to. He talked of cyber frauds, technology and all of that. Technology at one stage used to be for risk aversion, actually increasing productivity, then risk aversion, now identifying problem areas. Now we are getting into a scenario where even the regulator is looking for automated audits and no human interface. Typically, I'm told that 10% of the funds are invested in technology or something, but technology is going to be increasingly a huge budget for banks. At a strategy level, how is the approach to technology and funding to it, how is that being looked at? If you could share some thoughts. So
when you say approach to technology, one is, of course, the point that you made just now, that cyber security is a very serious threat, and investments, of course, needs to go there. But let me just move from there to say that to build the entire technology stack of a bank, which is the infrastructure layer, the applications layer, the middleware layer, the channels layer, the customer interface layers, the data lake, the data engineering, the pipes connecting, this whole stack building of the new modern stack to build, to take advantage of the new ecosystems, is going to be really important. Because if the stack is not good, we cannot give a good customer experience. We can do whatever painting you want to the app. It won't give experience layer. So we at our bank, to your question, are investing in building a really, I believe, fantastic, top of the world stack here, and that is our focus. And with a really good technology stack, and people who have experienced a bank app, for example, can now almost see a big difference in terms of the experience. Now, again, at a strategy level, the difference is about how will we connect to the ecosystems, because this is a stack. There are ecosystems. There are account aggregators come, Bureau is there, Open is there, ONDC is there. A lot of this ecosystem, KYC, e-stamping, e-agreement, the whole ecosystem is coming there. So our ability to connect with all the ecosystems will depend upon how well we build the technology.
Because ONDC, supply chain, financing, all those elements come in.
So how do you connect? You can have all these ecosystems there, but how do you connect? Only with a good technology stack. So we believe that, to your question on investments,
yes.
to build a modern stack which is set for the future, or building the bank for the future, is our focus area.
Okay. Mr. Mistry, while until unless you would want to have any view on what we discussed on technology, one thing which I do want to address from a banker's perspective is, I mean, it's flavor of the season to talk of interest rates. So your outlook on interest rates, I mean, this has been something which just gets meshed into any discussion. So before we get into other things.
All right. So before I talk of interest rates, I'll just add to what Vaidya said, which is that at no point of time in a bank's history can you say that my technology is perfect. Because there are changes that are happening by the day. As we speak, there is something or the other that is happening. And the kind of cyber risks that are increasing day by day by attacks from different sources, I think that's a big worry. And artificial intelligence and so many new things are coming. So your cost on the technology will always continue. Now, my view on interest rates, I think we put too much emphasis on interest rate. I think it's more important to understand the liquidity situation rather than just talk of interest rates. Because if RBI was to reduce interest rates by 0.25%, which I'm sure in my opinion, in the course of the financial year, it will happen. Maybe November, maybe December, maybe January, I don't know, it probably will happen. But at the moment, it is more important that there is some liquidity which is infused in the system. Because by reducing interest rates, effectively what will happen? The benefit of the lower interest rate will go back to the customer. But the cost of funds of a bank is not necessarily going to come down. So you may put a little more pressure on the margins of the bank. That's at least my view.
But whereas you're talking of liquidity infusion.
Whereas if you were to put more liquidity in the system, maybe by reducing the CRR a little bit or some other mechanism, then you will automatically, the benefit of that lower cost of funding would be passed on by banks to customers. So liquidity infusion, in my view, is at the moment more important than just reducing interest rates.
Even with the inflation rate that you talk of 5.1%, you think there is a case for liquidity infusion? Yeah,
but you look at it like this. Where is the inflation high? Inflation is largely high because of food. Now, would reducing interest rate make a material difference as far as food inflation is concerned? Your core inflation is now 3.13%. So core inflation is very, very manageable. So I think there could be a case. Monsoons are good this year. Hopefully food prices will also come down. There is no geopolitical issue at the moment. I mean, it's been continuing for the last 2 years. There's nothing additional that is happening. Oil prices are not suddenly spiking. So there is room, in my view, before the end of the financial year to perhaps look at an interest rate cut. And we are seeing that in the US. More and more we are hearing about the US, possibly the Fed reducing interest rates.
Okay. Ms. Daruwala, you have any thought on this? Or
I would agree with what Keki said.
Can you be a little keep the mic a little closer?
I would agree with what Keki said on the interest rates. I think liquidity is also a very important factor. And interest rates is a function of global interest rates plus local inflation. So it's many considerations which go into whether to reduce interest rates or not. So it's a very dynamic thing.
Yeah. One quick point which I do want to refer to, and I think you have done some work at Standard Chartered on this as well, is on sustainability financing. That is one area which even the governor referred to. The problem that is, when we talk to people in this sustainability space itself, they don't know define kaise karna hai. How do we measure it? We really don't know. And that is going to be a regulatory compulsion for the corporates as well. So there is a need, but there is still no understanding on this, and it has to ramp up. How are banks thinking at it? And I would appreciate if all actually can share some thoughts on this, starting with you, Ms. Zarin.
So globally, we have a practice, sustainability practice, where we sort of guide our clients, handhold them, and it's something that we do as pro bono kind, just sort of with our clients. And also there are external agencies now who sort of actually validate your assumptions, etc. They give you ratings. The big companies in India are already looking at those agencies for an external validation of what they are doing. So that process has started for sure. Actually, one is a very clear kind of sustainability. The second is transition finance. I think that is also very important. So if it's a steel company, and how are they looking at, the electric arc furnace transition?
In fact, the governor specifically referred to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're seeing different companies actually, which are very energy intensive, actually looking at transition. So that is also an important element of the whole sustainable finance. And the third element is also how are you, for example, how are you recycling your water? Many other parameters also very, very important. So it's a fairly comprehensive kind of play, I would say, in sustainability. Yeah.
Mr. Dinesh Khara, how are you? I mean, are you reskilling your people? Are you, or how is the kitty on this front emerging for you? What do you see as the key priorities in this space?
No, well, of course, there are two sides. One is, of course, RBI also came out with their guidance for raising the green deposits. So we started doing that. And simultaneously, when it comes to green lending, that is something which is a part of our focus. As I mentioned in my previous statement, that renewable is one of the major focus areas, and we are encouraging even the corporates also, that wherever possible, if at all, they can go for adoption of the green through the solar and also for the water treatment plant, etc. So we are funding them for all that. Actually, we have now for about 2 years, we have started doing the ESG rating. That ESG rating is essentially being used to nudge these corporates for improving or improving the ESG compliance standards. Now, of course, with the, for the listed corporates, it is mandatory because of the SEBI. We are required to give the status relating to adoption of green. So that is also one of the reasons why perhaps it has been made mandatory from the last year onwards. So this ESG rating which you are doing is actually helping these corporates in terms of ensuring compliance with the SEBI requirement too. Eventually, the fact remains that the green depositor expect little more from the bank, and when it comes to green lending, they expect little lower in terms of interest rate. We have started doing a bit in terms of when it comes to financing EVs. We charge about 5 basis points lower, and we fund 100% on-road price of the EVs. This is just to give a nudge in the society for adoption of EVs. Some little bit of calibration we can do at our level, but eventually, if at all, we have to see these kind of things happening at an industry level. Perhaps we had, at a point of time, made a request to RBI, if at all, they can consider some kind of a lower CRR for the green deposits.
Lower CRR for green deposits?
Yeah, if at all that can be done, it will give some kind of elbow room for the banking system to pay little more for the green deposits.
Okay.
And likewise, it is something which will go a long way in terms of encouraging banking system to raise green deposits and also lend for the green purposes. Yeah. That is something which we have taken some baby steps, I may say so. But yes, of course, almost about 50,000 crore worth of book we have already created in the green lending. So that is
50,000 crore.
Yeah, 50,000 crore book we have already created. And we are, of course, we are raising the funds from some of the multilaterals also, which is helping us in sort of lending to and at least adoption of the green across the corporate sector in the country. So these are some of the initiatives which we have taken. But yes, of course, as an organization, we have already set up a department headed by a fairly senior functionary in the bank, so that we can have a coordinated effort for the green. So at a bank level, we are doing so many things which are green, but at the same time, for the ecosystem also, these are the initiatives which we have taken.
Yeah, Mr. Vaidyanathan, if you have anything to add on this before I come to the last question and then we take the audience question.
Yeah,
I also
sure.
want to check, I just want to add in this point, when these are green deposits, the problem which we talk in the market, they say that, what is the benefit? I mean, if there is no higher interest rate there, if it's going to be like any other deposit, then why put money there? So any thought on whether tinkering with that will help, and anything else that you would have?
Yeah, to your earlier comment. See, the thing is that ESG is now become a real focus area. Okay, I'm not sure even 3-4 years ago it had gathered the kind of heft and seriousness. In our bank, we have hired we have a person called Shikha Hora, who's a senior person, who's the head of one of our many large businesses. We have given her the responsibility of doing ESG and directly reporting to me.
Okay.
At my level, imagine, one down is head of ESG. And we do this to get the focus. Because ESG is not a department, though the person reports, it runs horizontally across the bank.
Across the bank.
And because if you think of corporate banking, they're also supposed to ideally do ESG financing, not avoid a coal financing, but finance a more ESG product. But if you go to retail banking, there's a lot of ESG work can be done there. We are doing. For example, when you're financing, say, let me say, solar lanterns or solar panels, we started a business for that. Now we started financing, say, toilets. And by the way, repayment in toilets for the poor, for relatively poor people is fantastic, really good. And we have a close to about 800 crore portfolio, and repayment rate is 99%. So we are finding that not only large, but below the bottom of the pyramid, financing ESG products like the ones I talked to you about can be a focus area, and that comes through when you have a dedicated focus in the bank, in our opinion.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Mistry, the point about now, we just want to conclude with this point about, I mean, everyone talks about what is happening in the budget, what's going to happen. In your view, you mentioned this point about affordable housing. In your wish list right now, I mean, we are free in a free country, so we can obviously have a wish list. One would be 2-3 wish lists that...
So I would say, in my opinion, the budget will probably revolve around 6 broad pillars. The first will be growth. We've done growth. We've done extremely well compared to other countries, compared to the Western world, compared to emerging markets. And I think the government, RBI, have done a fantastic job. And I think that momentum on growth would continue. The second will be employment generation, and therefore focus on sectors which create jobs. Like we talked about housing, we talked about infrastructure, sectors like that. Third would be consumption. How do you drive consumption? Maybe driving consumption could be done again in a variety of ways, so driving consumption. Fourth could be the rural economy. Fifth would be manufacturing. And the sixth could probably be just fiscal discipline, making sure that the fiscal deficit does not breach the level that was originally mentioned. And I think that would happen because the tax collections have been buoyant, and there are other factors which would point towards fiscal discipline.
Is there any new, or Mr. Vaidyanathan, anyone?
Yeah, to supplement what Keki said, I think government will continue to, the whole infrastructure focus, I see that continuing. Like CRISIL report says that 20 lakh crores per annum is the expectation per annum for next 7 years. I think that will continue.
Okay,
PLI, I think they will keep on refining it based on the experience of the past, and PLI particularly for job creating kind of sectors.
Though we still don't have a proof of concept, I mean, how they will survive without the incentives of PLI, we still have to understand that, but you still feel emphasis will continue.
Emphasis will continue. I think they will refine based on the experience of the earlier this thing. That feedback they are already asking industry and many others as to what needs to be done. So that for sure will continue. And employment generation kind of sectors, those to my mind will definitely continue.
You agree with that, Mr. Dinesh, or anything else you would want to?
I agree absolutely with whatever has been the wish list, if I may say so. But yes, of course. Only one more point which I would like to add is rationalization of the tax treatment on the earning through the various asset classes, investment asset classes.
Is that likely, you think?
At least it's a wish list.
It's a wish list, yeah, correct. So nothing wrong in wishing. If we can open up for the 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Yes, please, can you identify yourself and just be very brief because we are running short of time. Whom would you also address, want a question to be addressed to?
Yeah. Good afternoon to Khara sir and Vaidyanathan sir. Sir, firstly you talked about deposit rate. You know, we are open to changing, hiking deposit rate if we need more deposit in our bank. Product fixes, whatever is necessary to get the deposits in. So recently you did raise some tenures on term. But is it more likely that SBI will further hike deposit rate either on savings or on term side? One, to you also, sir. And on infra loans, sir, like ma'am mentioned that there's a lot of employment generation capability in the sector. The RBI draft guidelines have come in which suggest 5% provision. So would that actually lead to slowdown or a hike for infra course? What is your suggestion or your recommendation to the RBI?
That we can keep it to this.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. And sorry, because everybody asks this question to Das sir, but to Khara sir as well. Will you, after your retirement, I mean, we are very near to that, so what are your plans after that? Thanks.
He'll continue, it will be extended. Mr. Khara.
Well, as far as the decisions relating to interest rate, we review the positions time to time in our ALCO, and depending upon the gaps where we feel that we need to be in line with what the market is, we do come out with some kind of a calibration in the interest rate. Your second question was relating to impact of the guidelines. Not the guidelines, it's a discussion paper actually, about the provision for the infra loans or the project loans. Actually, it is project loans. So I think on that, RBI has invited the views of all the stakeholders, and all of us have submitted our views on the matter. So let us wait and watch what is the final verdict in the matter. But perhaps it has to be seen in the context of the introduction of ECL2. And if at all it gets integrated with the ECL, my sense is that impact may not be as high as it is being envisaged currently. And your third question, it is about a month away from now, but one thing is very clear, I will be very active, and depending upon the opportunities, I'll look into it.
Let me tell you, Mr. Khara works on Sundays also, okay?
Yes.
So he's like insane, man. Okay, so he is Sundays, by the way. Am I right? Yeah? So you can never keep him off work.
Bankers never go into the flip side, on the evolutionary flip side. They never go on that. So I think they will remain that way. So I think in the interest of time, sir, I can ask one more question, but if you can be very brief, because we just run out of time. Yeah. Last question.
My
perhaps.
question would be green, and again I'll keep Mr. Khara occupied. Mr. Khara, you said that about green deposit you can pay higher interest rate, whereas general understanding is that those who put money in green deposit are willing to take little lower charge on that. Just wanted a clarification.
But the fact of the matter is, when we started building up our green deposit book, this is the actual ground level feel which we could get. That is why my sense is that probably the customer are expecting little more incentive for keeping the green deposit.
Yeah. Thanks so much. One round of applause for our incredible speakers. They have given enough time and a busy day. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.